And Sherwin joins us for more now. Sherwin, good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. The market's opening sharply lower in the United States today, then moving into the green for a short period before retreating back into negative territory. Now, halfway into the trading day where you are, how do matters stand and what is driving the current sentiment?
Well, driving the current sentiment, Bongiwe, is the fact that the White House and certainly investors have not seen a retreat from this White House. They have not seen a retreat from President Donald Trump in terms of the imposition of these tariffs, despite the numbers you saw reflected in the markets tanking on Thursday and Friday last week, a day after the day of liberation, right? The Liberation Day, in terms of the imposition of those reciprocal tariffs last Wednesday. The market opened about 1,500 points lower. It then it got back some gains, apparently based on an erroneous report out of the White House stating that the Trump administration was considering a 90-day pause. So we went from 1.5 in the red back up about 600 points in the green and then back into the red again. So this is the volatility you're talking about in terms of the anxiety and the uncertainty that is prevalent here in terms of where we go in terms of this market. And let me tell you what we have just heard from the White House. President Trump on Truth Social essentially threatening additional tariffs on China due to China responding to the U.S. imposition of 34% last week. Retaliating with their own 34% tariffs on U.S. imports into China. This is what Trump said on Truth Social a short while ago. If China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, April 8th, 2025, the United States will impose an additional tariff on China of 50%. Effective April 9th. Additionally, all talks with China concerning their requested meetings with us will be terminated. Negotiations with other countries which have also requested meetings will begin taking place tomorrow. Thank you for your attention on this matter. So he's threatening China essentially now with about tariffs to the tune of 104%, right? 54% exists already, plus an additional 50%. So the math indicates that the tariff will be far more expensive than the goods imported into the United States. And that portends very negatively for the U.S. economy and the global economy writ large. I'll tell you that China has also just released a statement, Bongiwe. I'll read you just a little bit about what they're saying. Recently, the United States has imposed tariffs on all its trading partners. By taking such action, the United States defies the fundamental laws of economics and market principles, disregards the balanced outcomes achieved through multilateral trade negotiations, ignores the fact that the U.S. has long benefited substantially from international trade. China is an ancient civilization and a land of propriety and righteousness. The Chinese people value sincerity and good faith. We do not provoke trouble, nor are we intimidated by it. Pressuring and threatening are not the right way in dealing with China. China has taken and will continue to take resolute measures to safeguard its sovereignty, security, and development interests. So, as the WTO Director General, Dr. Ngozi Iweala, has stated, she's very concerned about a global trade war. She has urged WTO member states not to retaliate and do a tit-for-tit scenario, but the tit-for-tit scenario is playing itself out before our eyes, Bongiwe, and we haven't seen the last of it. The EU is now considering its targeted retaliatory tariffs to the Trump position of imposing 20% on the EU. That's likely to come out on Wednesday. So watch this space. We are not at the end of this trade war, very much at the beginning.
Sure. And, Sherwin, this concern around these tariffs and other policy decisions reverberating also across the U.S. This past weekend, with tens of thousands taking to the streets across the country. What was their broad message to the administration?
Well, the tariffs really have just been the latest in a number of policy decisions by the Trump administration that has unsettled the domestic audience here in the United States, but also unsettled people around the world, in places like South Africa, in places like Thailand, anywhere you point to in terms of the cutbacks we have seen from the policy persuasions and decisions of this administration. So these were democratic groups that organized these protests around the country from coast to coast. Tens of thousands, I cannot underestimate this or overestimate it enough, tens of thousands of people, massive crowds turned out in major cities and towns around this country. And their statement said this: Trump and Elon Musk have created an unnecessary crisis under the belief that the country belongs to them exclusively. They're taking everything they can to get that they can get their hands on: our health, our care, our jobs, our services, and daring the world to stop them. Daring the world to stop them. This is a crisis, and the time to act is now. So you are seeing a boiling over of frustration, certainly from a certain segment of the U.S. population. Do not underestimate the support that Donald Trump still enjoys within the Republican Party, despite his policies that have been implemented in terms of, cutting immigration at the border, illegal immigration, whether it's been cutting USAID or cutting federal workers from the federal workforce, or the imposition of these tariffs. Donald Trump has his segment of the population that supports him. What you saw, I think, in the main, was a outpouring of frustration from Democrats who perhaps voted for Kamala Harris in the last election, and maybe a slither of independent voters that might have gone towards Trump in the last election, but are now very growingly concerned about the economic costs of his presidency, certainly in the short term, right? The perspective that the White House puts forward here is that this is a long-term strategy. The question is, how long can the most vulnerable people in a population in the country sustain a rise in prices, a rise in inflation? And that's certainly what economists at large are pointing to in terms of the imposition of these tariffs.
And Sherwin, of course, another development is the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu back at the White House today. His second visit since President Trump's inauguration. What's on the agenda?
Let me just look at my screen. No, he's not arrived, but the entourage is awaiting his arrival at the White House. Of course, as you correctly point out, this is the second time that Benjamin Netanyahu has been to the White House since President Trump's inauguration. And what's on the agenda? The president imposed a 17% tariff on Israel, even though just before the announcement last Wednesday, the Israeli prime minister had announced that Israel was withdrawing all tariffs on U.S. imports into Israel. That didn't help them. One imagines that 17% tariff levy on Israel will be part of the conversation today. Of course, we've seen the resumption in the war in Gaza. Of course, there is a humanitarian siege on the enclave right now. And of course, the ceasefire for hostage and prisoner exchange deal has come to a halt, and there are still 59 hostages that are still being held by Hamas, some 20 plus who are thought to still be alive. What are the ramifications of the continued escalation you are now seeing in terms of the military response by Israel in the Gaza Strip, with, one imagines, a great deal of U.S. support, right? We also understand that Iran's nuclear threat will be on the agenda, and the fight against the International Criminal Court. Of course, after Benjamin Netanyahu defined that arrest warrant and visited Hungary over the last few days, and of course Hungary subsequently withdrawing its membership to the Rome Statute. So lots on the table, certainly, in terms of the Israeli discussion at the White House on Monday.
I hope you do have moments to catch your breath, Sherwin. It looks like a roller coaster ride, as you describe it, a vortex. It certainly does look like it's unfolding before our eyes. So I'll let you go, catch your breath, and let's see what's coming in the next 20 minutes or so, or even an hour. Let's see then if we are lucky tonight. That's my colleague there, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News correspondent.